Welcome, Junior Rangers. Welcome to Big Basin Redwoods State Park in the Santa Cruz Mountains. So glad you're here. There is an option for you to do a Q&A and perhaps to raise your hand. We're going to practice that because I want to know if you're here. So raise your hand if you've ever been to a Junior Ranger program, either online or maybe at a park somewhere. Raise your hand. Do you see that? There's where you can click to raise your hand. Wonderful. There's also an option for Q&A, for question and answer. So if you can find that and write maybe what city you live in, where you're living right now, or where you're visiting us from. So I know that the Q&A is working too. Put your, you could put your first name in there or where you're from if you can find the Q&A. Wonderful. And you can use that. I'll be asking some questions during our Junior Ranger program. I'll ask you to raise your hand at certain times or to write answers in the Q&A. And if you have questions, there's someone behind the camera, Rewa, and she can let me know that there's a question and we can answer it, perhaps. My name is Susan. I'm an interpreter here for California State Parks. I work at Big Basin Redwoods State Park. Raise your hand if you've ever been to Big Basin Redwoods State Park or any Redwoods Park. We're in the Santa Cruz Mountains in California. Some of you might not even live in California. It sounds like a couple of you have been to Big Basin. That's fantastic. I love doing Big Basin Junior Rangers here, and I'm hoping when we do start up programs again, you'll be able to join us live, either camping here or just coming for the day. Today, we're going to be perhaps figuring out a mystery that happens around the world in all sorts of areas. We're going to see if you know what happens when things die, when things fall to the ground, leaves, sticks, or if there's scat on the ground or a big, huge tree. What happens to those? If you know what happens, maybe write it in Q&A and let us know. I'll ask you some questions. Raise your hand when you think it's the correct answer. So the question is, what happens when leaves fall to the ground every year? So raise your hand if the answer is they blow away in the wind. The second answer, so no raise, okay. The second answer, and they can. The second one is they wash away in the rain. They all wash away in the rain. Raise your hand if you think that's what happens to all the leaves that fall. The third choice is they turn into soil. They turn into soil. You all answered that. That's correct. That's correct. Actually, all of them. Some of them can blow away, but wherever they blow away to, they also turn into soil. Some of them are washed away in the rain, but wherever they're washed away to, that place, they turn into soil. There's a word for things that turn into soil. There's a word for what happens. If you know that word, you can write it in the Q&A. I'm going to show you something that's kind of gross, I think. It's probably lucky here that you can't smell things because I've been smelling this all morning and it's awful. Have you ever seen anything in your house that looks like this? It's really stinky. Have you ever seen anything like that? Here's another one. Maybe you've seen, oh, this really smells. Do you know what this is? What do you think that is?
Grace is saying that these things are decomposing.
They are. They're decomposing. And one of our decomposers we can really actually see on here. This is decomposing, just like those leaves, feathers, scat, dead animals. They all decompose. What if things didn't? What if we lived in a world where all the scat, do you know what scat is? It's animal poop. What if all the animal poop, the feathers, the sticks, the leaves, the dead animal, everything just stayed there forever? You think we could even live on this planet? Raise your hand if you don't think we could live on this planet if we didn't have things decomposing. Do you think we could live on this planet? I don't know. There would be so many, like if a redwood tree fell and never decomposed, we'd have huge redwood trees all over the forest and all over the world. We'd have oak trees and palm trees and dead deer and dead giraffe and dead worms, all those things. But luckily, there's a crew that's working on decomposing these. And this crew is called the FBI. The FBI helps to decompose things. Do you think I mean this kind of FBI? The Federal Bureau of Investigation? No, this is a special kind of FBI. This is the Forest FBI. And it's fungus, bacteria, and invertebrates. I'm going to show you a picture of some of the fungus, bacteria, and invertebrates. And I'm going to talk about each one of these as we're going along. So maybe you'll see a picture. The first one that we're going to be talking about is fungus. Now, have you ever seen fungus? Do you think you've ever eaten fungus? Here's something I took out of my refrigerator today. Have you ever seen anything like that? That's one kind of fungus. These kind of funguses are called mushrooms. Raise your hand if you like mushrooms, like in your spaghetti or in your pizza. Raise your hands if you like fungus. A couple people do. That's awesome. I happen to like it. These are the kind of fungus that show up on logs. Check out this log that I found. Check out this log that I found out in the forest. These are a special kind of fungus called shelf fungus. And these ones are turkey tail fungus. What's it doing to this log? What do you think is happening? Now, fungus is not a plant. All things, all living things need to be able to get nutrients to eat. You eat, I bet, right? I eat. Raywa eats. A deer eats. A slug eats. Well, to get their nutrients, they decompose dead things. This log had a lot of nutrients when it was living, and the nutrients just don't disappear. They're still in here. And the fungus is doing two things. It's getting to eat, and it's also helping us to decompose. And fungus shows up on all sorts of things. Fungus can also, like on our lemon here, fungus mold is a kind of fungus also. There's slimy fungus, there's jelly-like fungus, there's the mushroom fungus. It comes in a lot of different ways. Very important as one of our decomposers. So I showed you apples. Have you ever seen anything in your house? Have you ever had any moldy bread or a moldy apple or a banana that's just so squishy you don't even want to eat it? Raise your hand if you've ever seen any of that kind of thing in your house. You might have had fungus in there. It's normal. And fungus is everywhere. It's even in the forest here. Some you can see and some you can't see. So after each one, when I talk about the F, the B, and the I, we're going to sing a little bit of a song. So I'm going to show you the chorus, And I'm going to also teach you how to do some actions. So let's have me live on there. And this is the way the chorus goes, okay? So we'll do this part as a repeat after me, but when the song actually comes up, we'll sing it together. So it says, the FBI, whenever something dies. Try that. The FBI, whenever something dies. The FBI is there on the scene. The FBI is there on the scene. The FBI is working overtime. The FBI is working overtime. The FBI to pick those bones clean. FBI to pick those bones clean. And then I'm going to point at you and say fungus. And wherever you are, you can stand up or stay seated. And you say fungus. And I'll say bacteria. And bacteria would go like this because they're unseen but fast. They're like ninjas. Bacteria. And then the last one, invertebrates, you're going to say invertebrate because invertebrates don't have a backbone. Can you feel your backbone? All right, just rip it out. Don't really. So you will say invertebrates, all right? So we're going to sing, and then there's each one of them has a little bit of a rap, and we're going to do the rap. So we just talked about the fungus that are in the forest of the FBI. The fungus, such an important decomposer. One of the most important ones, does a really hard work getting those nutrients from all those dead things, breaking it down into soil. And those nutrients go into the soil and new things can grow. So let's start out by singing the chorus and using all those movements, and then we'll do the little bit of the rap, okay? And I think that's all up there for you. You can probably click on there and have either the me big on your screen, or you can have the words big on your screen. There's a little place that you can click on that and make it bigger or smaller, okay? So let's sing that, all right? The FBI, whenever something dies, the FBI is there on the scene. The FBI is working overtime. The FBI to pick those bones clean. That's fungus, bacteria, invertebrates. The FBI, one more time, that's fungus, bacteria, invertebrates. The FBI, there's fungus all among us, and it's breaking things down, returning vital nutrients into the fertile ground. Millions of mycelium underground. That's why when you hold a handful of the earth, you hold the FBI. All right, let's move on to the B in the FBI. What did that stand for? Do you remember? What did the B stand for? B standard for bacteria. Now, bacteria we can't see. Bacteria is microscopic. So if you had a microscope, you can see it. But sometimes we can see the evidence of it. And the evidence of it, and Rewa can show you a picture of bacteria on a leaf. So sometimes if you see black stuff on a leaf, the round holes are usually caused by animals or fungus, but if you see black stuff, that's a bacteria. Now, sometimes we hear bacteria and we think of bad. Bacteria can be. It can get us sick sometimes if you have the wrong kind of bacteria in your body or in your stomach. But do you know we have millions of bacteria? It helps us digest our food. It's decomposing stuff in us. There's so much good bacteria out there. And the bacteria in the forest is so helpful. Do you know what a teaspoon is? A teaspoon maybe is about that big. Sometimes you stir things with it, hot chocolate or something. If you went out to your yard or into a park and dug up a teaspoon full of soil, you would see in that, well, if you had a microscope, there's over 100 million bacteria in one teaspoon. They're that tiny, and there's that many of them. So along with the fungus, that bacteria helps to break things down even more. And they're also getting the nutrients and turning those nutrients back into soil. So a new oak tree or apple tree or redwood can get those nutrients from the ground. All right, so we're going to sing our second one. We have a question, it looks like.
Well, I'm hearing from Jacob that their family has a compost. So what's going on in a compost?
I'm so glad you asked that, Jacob. I have compost too. And I actually went into my compost today to get some things out of it because FBI loves compost. And one of ours, the invertebrates, I'll show you in a minute that I got out of the compost. So compost, for those of you, if you have a compost too, you can raise your hand, or maybe your school has one, or you've heard of one. So compost is if you have leftover food, we put in eggshells, we drink coffee, so we put coffee grounds, we put banana peels, we put almost anything left over in there. You have to mix it up because it likes air. Sometimes we put paper in there, like shredded paper or something. There has to be a good mix, not too wet. And the FBI start up. You get some fungus. You get lots of bacteria. Remember, you can't see that. And you get invertebrates. And we'll talk about the invertebrates next. That's great, Jacob, that you have a compost. Compost is awesome because otherwise you're throwing away this good stuff into a trash can. There are indoor composts. They're kind of small, but you can get them and then it's not stinky. But otherwise, it's nice if you could get one for outdoors. At the end of today, we're going to talk about an experiment that you could do where you can first guess, have a hypothesis, how fast things might decompose. And if you have a compost, you might have an idea. What decomposes fast? How about slow? What does it need? Water, sun, shade? All right, so we just talked about the B of FBI, the bacteria. Now we're going to sing the song. So do you remember with that one? This is Microscopic Life. So let's sing. We're going to do the rap first, and then we'll move into the chorus. All right, so here's the rap part. Microscopic life is in the water, land, and air. You should know that they are there, though they're too small for your eyes. These are the secret agents of the FBI. The who? The FBI. Whenever something dies, the FBI is there on the scene. The FBI is working overtime. The FBI to pick those bones clean. That's fungus, bacteria, invertebrates. The FBI, that's fungus, bacteria, invertebrates, the FBI. All right, so we have one more left, and that's the I. What does that stand for? Some people think it stands for insects, and that's a pretty good guess. But the FBI has a lot of different organisms in there. An insect is a pretty specific animal that has 3 body parts and has usually antenna, things like that. The head, thorax, abdomen, maybe even know that song. So those are flies, for example. That's part of the decomposer crew. But there's also animals that don't have backbones like a fly, but it's not an insect. And that's other ones. A roly-poly. I had a roly-poly out of my compost, but it's run away. But let me show you who else I have here. Maybe you know these. Jacob, maybe you see these. They're very important for our compost piles. That's one of the main decomposers in our compost. What's that? It's worms, right? Worms are very important to decompose. But there's another one special that I found for you. And if you, sounds like some of you have been to Big Basin, have ever seen these, raise your hand. Look at those. Now these happen to be 2 very huge, fat invertebrates. I couldn't believe I found such big ones. Look at that, right? They have their slime. This is one of our most popular decomposers, and that is our banana slugs. They're very important to decomposition. They go through the forest, munching on fungus they love, and plants and scat. They love scat too. And then they scat it out or poop it out and help nourish the soil. I know that sounds weird, that poop helps the soil, but poop is full, scat is full of nutrients. And as it decomposes into the soil, those nutrients are returned. And that's what plants need to be able to live and grow. So the FBI, fungus, bacteria, and what was it? Insects? Invertebrates. The invertebrate crew are really good. I have an FBI joke for you. Let's see if you know the answer to this one and which I'm talking about, FB or I. All right. Why was the mushroom invited to the party? Why was the mushroom invited to the party? Because he's a fun guy. All right, here's another one. Why did the fungus leave the party? Why did the fungus leave the party? Because there wasn't mushroom. Mushroom. What did the little brother of Gus say to his big brother Gus? Let's go have some fun, Gus. So those are all mushroom jokes. If you have any other FBI jokes, write them in the Q&A. Oh, looks like we have one. What is it? I love hearing your jokes.
Grace is very punny. Grace says, fungus will never cease to amaze me.
Very
nice.
Good. I like that. All right. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to show you a picture of some leaves. And the leaves, I'll show you, I have the picture here. What happened to these leaves? And you have the picture in front of you too. What happened to the leaves? We have some clues here. I think there's some evidence of the FBI. So I have letters across the top, A, B, C, D. But when something falls and it's bright and green, it takes a while to what? To decompose. I want you to put them in order. So right now it says A, B, C, D. Which one was the freshest one, do you think? You can write in the letters whatever order. Is it C, B, A, D? Is it D, B, A, C? What do you think the order is? And we're going to show you the answers there. All right. So here's the answer. This one, of course, A, that's the first one that fell. Started decomposing some, turned into B. By C, it's really getting pretty decomposed by our FBI. And D, do you think D is the last? If I could hold up a handful of soil, that would be the oldest. Soil is our oldest one. Soil is decomposed leaves and such. So this is the oldest leaf. That leaf is way oldest because it's a mixture of all the decomposing leaves, decomposing dead animals, a decomposing feather, decomposing scat. Luckily, soil kind of cleans up the scat, so it's okay to hold it. All right. Another question, awesome, or comment.
We've got some really great guesses from Jacob, Grace, and Stella about the order that those leaves decompose in.
Great. Thank you. And I'm so glad you're using the Q&A. That's awesome. All right, we've got a couple more things before we're done. So our last part of our song, our FBI song, we sing about. Which one? Haven't we done yet? That's right, the invertebrates. All right, so we'll start. We're going to all do the rap part together. So it's not so much singing as it is kind of rapping. Ready? Insects, bugs, slugs, and worms are working night and day. The invertebrate crew are special agents of decay. To remove whatever's rotten, they will hop, crawl, hide, or fly. Enforcing nature's laws, they are the FBI. The who? All right, help me with this. Last time, the FBI. Whenever something dies, the FBI is there on the scene. The FBI is working overtime. The FBI to pick those bones clean. That's fungus, bacteria, invertebrates. The FBI. Last time, that's fungus, bacteria, invertebrates. The FBI. It's one of my favorite songs to sing that. And you can find it online. It's just called the FBI song. And you can find that anywhere on there. All right. Now, to see if you've got the idea of what might be an FBI, we're going to do the FBI quiz. So we have a lot of different pictures here. And you're going to raise your hand if it is a decomposer, okay? It is a decomposer. So, are you ready? Our first picture is up. So, what is that? You might know what that is. It's a raccoon. Is that a decomposer? If it is a decomposer, and a decomposer is something that pretty much just decomposes. Actually, that brings up a question. Are we decomposers? Because we poop out too. But we're not direct ones. We do eat, but we're usually omnivores, and we're eating a lot of different things, and just by pooping it out doesn't make us decomposers. Decomposers are pretty much direct to it. All right, so the first one's a raccoon. That was not a decomposer. They're omnivores.
Grace says no, but it is very cute.
I think raccoons are very cute. That one kind of is even a little baby one, and everything's cute babyish. All right, how about the next one? We met one of those. Raise your hand if that's a decomposer. That's right. That's our friend, the banana slug. That is a decomposer. They are definitely decomposers. And they are so important to decomposing here in the redwood forest. All right. Now, how about the next one? That one I also think is cute. Some people don't like these too much. Now, that is a spider. Is it a decomposer? We might think it is an invertebrate, not an insect, right? Insects have 6 legs, and this one has 8. Spiders, did you know spiders are carnivores? Spiders are not decomposers, though. All right, got a couple more. The next one is a bird that lives here at Big Basin called the Steller's jay. Is the Steller's jay a decomposer? Do they eat a lot of other things? Steller's jays are like raccoons. They will eat almost anything. They're not decomposers. They will eat decomposers. They're one of the ones that might eat a little slug. All right, a few more. How about this next one? That one. What's that one? That's right. That's the mushroom. It is definitely a decomposer. All over that log, decomposing it. All right. 3 more. How about this one? We have these here too at Big Basin, but I've never seen one ever here. So you don't have to worry if you come here. Is that a decomposer? No. That's a carnivore, just like a spider. Isn't it interesting? Spiders and mountain lions are carnivores. All right, 2 more. Now this one might be a little bit of a tricky one. That one's a crab. Is it a decomposer? Now, the reason it's tricky is because we might not realize, are there decomposers in all habitats, in all ecosystems? Raise your hand if you think you can find decomposers everywhere. You can actually. Decomposers are in the ocean. Crabs are one of the main decomposers. Maybe you've been on the beach and you've seen beach flies flying all around that kelp that is washed up. And in the ocean, crabs live in the ocean and they munch on the leaves. They munch on dead animals because animals die and drift to the bottom of the ocean. and you want to have decomposers there. You imagine if all the whales that died never decomposed, our ocean would be nothing but whales by this time. So that was a little bit of a tricky one, but there's decomposers everywhere. All right, one last one. And is it a decomposer? It is. That's a beetle. They're one of our very important decomposers too. You're exactly right. All right, we're going to watch a quick video and tell me, once you can figure out what's happening in this video. It's called a time-lapse video, and it says it takes 72 days and moves it into about a minute and a half. I want you to look closely. And what are you going to see? What's happening? There's a lot of things that happen, but notice even towards the end, notice the speed. It's about things decomposing. Do they all decompose at the same time? What happens at the very end to some things? All right, so Ray was going to hit play, and we're going to watch the video. Take just a second to put it up. All right, what did you think of that video? I think it's really cool to watch that. What did you notice happening? A lot of stuff was happening in that. So that was a big plate of different kinds of vegetables. Did they all decompose at the same time? Things like tomatoes go really fast. What was one of the last ones to decompose? And something happened to that last one rather than really decomposing. Something popped out of it. Ray, what?
See, we've got a lot of wows. Grace is talking about the circle of life, and Jacob is saying the garlic. The garlic was amazing.
Yes. You are such good noticers. That is a really good quality for a junior ranger, to be able to observe and notice all that. So yeah, I noticed that it went in different speeds. I noticed towards the end, as more of them decomposed, they all kind of decomposed faster. Decomposing stuff sends out a smell and chemicals that help other things decompose too. And I noticed that potato, the big potato, and more potatoes grew out of it. Eventually that potato would have completely decomposed. But first, that's how new potatoes grow, or out of the old potatoes. Now you're going to, we have another comment.
Grace was mentioning the green apple was really interesting to watch, and Jacob is saying that the garlic did not rot. So that was interesting how slow that was.
That is such a good observation. Do you think it ever would? Do you think it ever would if we left it out for 172 days? Do you think it would ever decompose? Eventually it would. Garlic has a special ingredient in it, and garlic's not the only thing, onions and stuff, but they have something in it that the decomposers don't like a lot. Just like redwoods. Redwoods have something in them, a chemical that decomposers don't like, and that's why redwoods take forever to decompose. All this chemical in it, it's called tannin, has to be washed away by the rain eventually. And garlic has a chemical too that the decomposers don't like. If we had, you know what? I'm remembering, I'm going to challenge you to do an experiment at home. And the experiment at home is kind of like that video we watched. If you have some containers, and that can be a plastic container, that one was sitting out, but if you left something like that sitting out, I was telling you how much of our apples stunk here. If you left it in your house, it would be stinking. Now, you might be able to put it outside, but if you have any animals like raccoons that came along, they might want to get it. Maybe you can figure out a way to cover it with a cage or something, but otherwise, you can put things into a plastic container. And I would choose a couple different things. Garlic would be a great one. I hadn't thought of that. I was thinking also a potato. Another kind of thing that you could do is paper. You could do a glass bottle. So in an experiment, you need to have a hypothesis. What do you think might happen? Which one, or for each one you can guess how long it would take? I'd be so interested in that garlic compared to other things. Now, one thing we didn't talk about, we talked about the FBI and how important they are. Did you know that you can help the FBI? There is something that they cannot decompose, and that's plastic. Whether it's a plastic bottle, this is some trash I found at Big Basin, and I picked it up, and I'm going to go throw it in the trash. But decomposers cannot decompose plastic. It does break down by the sun, eventually into pieces, but even those small pieces stay in the soil, and it can harm wildlife. So you, especially as junior rangers, can help by throwing away trash. So a comment?
Yeah, Grace says that they have a local raccoon in their community. And how does that relate to what you're saying about throwing away our trash and protecting wildlife?
So we don't want to, that's like with my compost that we have outside. We have raccoons too, but we try and cover it. It's a lot of people think feeding the raccoons might be a good idea, but they will just keep coming around and coming around. And eventually they'll bring their families, and the parents teach the babies to come here, and you'll have way too many raccoons. Raccoons, they eat roly-polies, they can eat slugs, they like eggs, which is okay for them to eat bird eggs. It's part of the cycle of life that one of you mentioned. They can eat other insects, they can eat baby snakes. There's plenty of things out there for them to eat. So that's why with your experiment, I was saying if you do have raccoons in your area, maybe there's a shed you can put them in where they can't get in there. But I wouldn't just lay your garlic and your apple and your potato outside, because if you have animals like that, they could get to it. But maybe some sort of wire cage or something that they can't get into, you'd have to do. That video, they had it somewhere indoors, and we didn't see a lot of the invertebrates coming into that. That was a lot of F and B on that video, decomposing that. So for your experiment, get some of these plastic things, choose 4, 5, 6 things, and guess, and keep notes. Scientists always keep notes. You could take pictures and have a record of it. Which one would decompose first? If I had a tomato, maybe that. Maybe my garlic would be last, or plastic would probably be sit there forever. So that's one of the things you can do. The other one is maybe, hopefully you have downloaded this, but this is our FBI forest hunt. Now, you don't have to be out in our forest here. If you have any kind of park here or near where you live, we are open here, so you could come up here too. But see how many of these scavenger hunts you can find, whether it's around your neighborhood or the next time you go to a park, you can bring it and try doing your FBI hunt. All right. We're going to finish up with our Junior Ranger Pledge. You have completed the class. You did fantastic. You participated. And hopefully you'll do some of the projects at home, and you'll have a better appreciation for the hardworking FBI that are all around here. So for this one, it's repeat after me. So you can raise your right hand. I'm going to say my name, and then when you do repeat after me, you'll say your name. Okay, ready? So I, Susan, promise to treat the earth and all living things with care and respect. be thoughtful about what I do and how it affects others. Learn about the importance of nature and our heritage. Congratulations, you are a junior ranger, or if you've been a junior ranger, you've got another stamp to add in. I want to thank you for joining us here to learn about the forest, FBI, the most important, more important than almost anything, because without them on this planet, we would have to be wading through a lot of dead stuff. Thank you, FBI. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.